to introduce to y'all the new Lift X shell color. It's new for 2025 for me. I'm not going to go over too much with it, but also new, which is huge to me, is the new UV slider. Now, this is not the new UV slider that is known for $700, but this is last year's make. I am coming from the HHA, and to me, we'll get into the depths of it here in a minute, but I'm currently getting everything solid and set up perfectly. I just got done with the first, second, and third axis adjustments with it last night. I had it sighted in to like where I thought, and I noticed at 85 and 90 yards I was shooting high, so I went up a tape. I was on tape 9, now I'm on tape 8. So let's try it out at 70 and 80 here in a second. That was 60. Seems like it's on. It might be a little bit low. I might have to move the tape up a little bit, but let's try it out. We are not a yard off. Shot for 80.9, 81. Sighted it for 82, so let's talk about it. All new Lift X, new to me, UV slider. So there's a couple takeaways for this bow and this sight as well. So there are a couple things. I'm going to just drop on the bow a little bit because it's been kind of ran about 2025 already. We're going into February right now, so there's tons of reviews on this bow. So if you really want to go into an in-depth review, pay no mind to my dog as well, please. If you want to go into in-depth review, you can find that. What I'm going to take away, obviously, the biggest thing is the tuning system. Sorry, I put my dog up because he's just walking around. He cannot be still. But tuning system, 10 out of 10. Only thing they do not have is a timing feature. I don't have problems with the timing. It is a little bit finicky getting it set up and everything. But overall, I've not had any problems with this bow. I've put quite a few shots through this bow already. No idea how much. Honestly, probably if I had to assume 500 to 1,000 arrows, that's just a guess. Could be more, could be less. The match strings this year, for whatever reason, this batch, I don't know if they've made the process better or what, but these strings have held up way better than my Lifts strings. I've not lost any time sync on the cams. I've not noticed any difference in the timing. There was a little bit right after I got the bow set up and got a couple hundred arrows to it. I had to go back and just adjust the cables just a little bit. But I think that's kind of a given on a brand new bow. My biggest thing that I've switched to this year is I went down in my draw length. I was shooting a 27, now I'm at 26 and a half. But the biggest thing is I'm shooting 80% let off. Do not let anybody talk you into thinking 85% is better. Now, hunting purposes, if you're a whitetail hunter or maybe elk hunting, I could see it where you might have to hold the draw longer, 85%, and it might be a closer range. But if you expect to take longer shots, you know, that 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus, maybe even 60, whatever you're comfortable with, 80% mods I feel like are going to serve you so much better. And I have noticed it for myself. My shooting groups have tremendously came down. So like at 80 yards, I would be shooting, about a 6 to 7 inch. On a good day, a really good day, I'd be shooting that. With this, on a bad day, like today was a bad day for me. I was floating all over the place. Shoulders are tired. Just, whatever excuse I can come up with, I could tell my float was a lot larger, but my floating was not larger than what it would have been at 85%. So at 85%, my bad days were this. Whereas today, 80 yards, my group was this, which is about an 8-inch group, which is, to me, a bad group. I want those arrows like this at 80 yards. That's just my preferences. Enough of the bow. I think everybody knows everything they need to know about the bow. Like I said, if you're going to plan on changing, I 100% think you should. It did take me a little bit getting used to the 80% mods. I feel like the valley on this bow is a lot shallower at 80% versus 85, which that's kind of a given. So I did sling a few arrows because I was easing off my back wall, which is a good thing. Kind of teaches you to stay in your back wall more. I do have that tendency every now and again with this, but that's mostly after I've shot about 15 arrows, or I've shot like 6 or 7 arrows back to back to back to back to back with no break or not a 10-second break or anything. I'll notice me to jump up a little bit. But if you take your time with it, don't get frustrated, shoot up close with it for a couple of weeks, get used to holding into that back wall a little bit more. It won't be a problem, I'm sure. The sight. The UV slider, I coming from the HHA Tetra Rise. The biggest complaint I had with the HHA was how heavy it is. Now this sight supposedly is supposed to be about an ounce lighter, which I don't see it. I feel like it on the bow itself feels lighter. I've not physically weighed my bow with this versus that, but it doesn't feel as top heavy with this sight on there. So that's a plus for me because I felt like that sight was just too heavy. It's a great sight. I feel like I could drop it off of a mountain and it not break. So if you're looking for a very rigid and tough sight, I would definitely go with it. I've not put this one through the ringer. I've put that one through the ringer. So there's that. This one's got it's got the third axis, the first and second axis. If you watch MFJJ's videos, I don't know if y'all know who that is, Podium Archer. He talks about this, goes in depth more. I'm not in complete understanding for sure yet on first and second axes. I know it does matter. He says that first and second axis are two different things. This sight has it completely first and second as the same. So the third axis is completely different. I know that UV's newest sight, I'm like 99% sure, has the first and second axis as two different adjustments. You can look into that. The main reason I bought this sight was I got a good deal on it and it wasn't $700, which was how much the new UV slider is. But I have heard time and time again that these pins are not bright. That is in fact false. I don't know what people are looking for in a sight. I could maybe see like the last 5 minutes of light, it being a problem, maybe. But as far as I get home from work, I got 30 minutes of daylight usually right now in January and February. So I shoot all the way up to almost last light and I've not had a problem. I've not even used the light on this bow or on this sight, so I could just take that out honestly and save more weight. But if anything, I wish it had a shade on it so I could dim it down because the fibers itself, because I've found myself, it's a little bit of a glare. It's almost too bright for me. That's one great thing about the HHA. The HHA had that adjustable shade on it. I could turn it up, turn it down, whatever I wanted. Never had any problems out of it. So I don't know where everybody's getting this idea that these pins are super dim. I've shot this late afternoons, have not had a problem with it, have not turned the lights on it, nothing. So Is it maybe as bright as HHA on the HHA's brightest setting? Definitely not. But I have not had a problem with it. Just saying. Setup process for this tape, for this site, super easy. I did narrow it down. So whenever I first started on this tape, I got to site tape 8, is what it said. And I was like, well, I'm going to shoot for site tape 9 because I've noticed in the past with HHA, I ended up going with the lower number or the slower site. And so I went with site tape 9. Everything was fine to about 70 yards, and I noticed at 70 yards I was about 1 inch to 2 inches high. Well, I dropped back to 80, 85, and 90 yesterday, and noticed that my groups were trending higher and higher and higher. So at like 80, I was about 3 inches high. 89, I was 85, I was like 4 inches high, and then 90, I was about 4 to 5 inches high. So I was like, okay, this makes sense. Let's drop it down. Let's drop it to site tape 8, which is a faster tape. And I just shot it today. Everything seems like I'm still a hair bit high at 80. I didn't drop back to 90 because I was super shaky today, and I'm like, I'm not going to go shoot 90, and I might shoot high, I might shoot low, I might shoot right, I might shoot left. So I wasn't going to push it today because my shoulders are sore from working out and shooting my bow a bunch yesterday. I shot like 60, 70 shots through this bow at 80 pounds, 80% let off. That's quite a few arrows for me. But overall, it's extremely easy to set up. Shoot your 20 on the setup tape, and then you go find your 60. So I usually back up. I'll go to 30. I'll go to 40. Then I might jump back to 55. And then I'll get to 60. And then wherever it's dialed at 60, it'll be landed on like either 1 through, I don't know what their site tapes are, too. It's like 20 or 25. And if you're on site tape, it goes to like 8, which is what I'm at right now. That's what site tape you are. Put it on where your 20's at, and you go on. The next biggest thing about this site is the pins itself. I'm not really probably going to be able to show y'all very well, but the pins for your site tapes here are extremely fine. On the HHA, I had problems with, and this has already been said, but it is true. On the HHA, it was set off of your site tape a little bit, so if you looked above your pin, you might have been like, say you set it at 80 yards and you looked above, it was on 82. If you looked down a little bit, had your bow setting up a little bit, is it like 79? So it was like, well, am I at 80? Am I at 79? Or am I 81? Or am I 82? And everybody knows at that far of a range, 4 yards is a huge difference. So if you're quick ranging for a buck, that could have been a problem. That's a miss or injuring the deer. So that was my biggest complaint about the HHA. Two complaints about the site tapes is they're almost too small. They fit perfectly on these metal tracks that come with the site tapes. So you take your site tape off the paper and you put it on these metal tracks that bolt on to the site. And they fit perfectly on that metal track. I don't like it. I mean, I guess for precision-wise, for your pins to line up correctly, it's good. But it's kind of my pet peeve was I kept sticking it down, kept sticking it down, kept sticking it down. I had to move it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth till I got it straight and then lined it up. That's a pet peeve of mine. Nothing crazy. But that, and there was something else. The windage, super easy. I'm not sure how I like the fact that it doesn't lock. So like that could easily be popped out and turned a couple clicks left, right, whatever. HHA, it had a spin on the top, you locked it, and it was very hard to turn your windage. This, super easy, it's very smooth. I like their lock. You can still turn it if need be. It's tight, so you shouldn't have to worry about bumping it too bad. The number one complaint that I could probably come up with about this sight, and this is kind of stretching because overall this sight is extremely well built. It's very sleek. It looks good on the bow. I'm all about looks when it comes to this kind of stuff for whatever reason. I just like stuff to look good. Is the caps, like this pulls out, it's just held by a set screw over here. And it snaps in a little bit, and then you got the set screw there just for in case, pretty much. It's made of plastic. I'm not a big fan of that. And this is some kind of like composite stuff. Not a big fan of that. I would rather see an all metal design, which I know that weighs more. The new sight has still got plastic on it. And I know you're not beating and banging on these things, and if you break this, you can just replace that, which is nice. UV done a great job, because if you break that, you can just get a new one. If you break that, you can just get a new one. Not a big deal. But in the sense of things, I'm not the biggest fan of that being plastic. That's just a small thing. I think of all of this sight, all put together, all the problems that I see with this, that's probably my biggest problem with this sight. Other than that, windage, I like it. It's super easy. Just pop it out, span it, click, 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 click. I mean, you can hear the sounds. You can hear it. Super sleek, super nice. It's kind of pleasing, you know. But I do wish that you could lock that more permanently, if that makes sense. Other than that, no complaints of this bow. This might sound weird, but this bow sounds quieter than my lift. I would like to do a comparison in it with a video, like me shooting this one, picking up my lift, shooting it, picking this one up, shooting it. See if you can hear it on the camera at all. But this bow, noticeably to me, sounds quieter. Which makes no sense, because this bow is pretty much the same bow as the lift. This has got the same stuff. The only framing work different is right here where they cut on the riser beside your thumb. Other than that, and they say they changed the limbs, or they put a coating on the limbs, whatever it is, I'm not 100% sure. But it is quieter than my other bow. So take that for what it's worth. That's probably what's going to sum up about this bow. We're going to try doing more shooting content. Let me know what you want to see. This is kind of overview of my 2025 bow this year. LiftX 29.5, 26.5 inch draw, 80% let off, 80 pounds. That's what I'm going with. I'm going with the UV slider this year. 0 complaints. Love it so far. Other than that, see y'all next time.